I'd like to welcome our newest sponsor, Schecter Guitars. This holiday season, go over to schecterguitars.com and see what high-quality goodies they have waiting there for you. Premium feel and unbeatable price. See why guitarists like Isaac Brock from Modest Mouse, Robert Smith from The Cure, and Ernie C. from Body Count all love Schecter Guitars. A wide variety of styles and builds with high-end components and affordable prices for touring guitarists. Built to last. Go treat yourself and try something new you've always wanted to check out. Schecter Guitars has it all. What's up, everybody? Our partners at Izotope are having a huge holiday sale. Go to izotope.com/deals to save 30% or more on pro mixing and audio repair tools. Save over $400 on RX11 Advanced. Solve the unsolvable with their complete 44-tool audio repair and enhancement suite. That's izotope.com/deals. These savings are for a limited time only. Don't wait. Hey, what's happening? Before we jump into the show, I wanted to see if you had any music on a hard drive. You have a band, you have a project, and you want to self-release your own music. Well, there's an easy way to do it. You can go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate and go get your music up on all the streamers. You keep 100% of your royalties, and you can get 30% off by using this code. It's a great, easy way to get your music up on the streamers and share it with your fans, your friends, your family, your mom, your dog, everybody. Everyone wants to hear it. But go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate, HYPHENATE, and send me the link. I want to hear it too. Send your mom the link. Send your dog the link. They all want to hear it too.
I had everything ever written on him in every language and every video and every interview on video. I'd gotten copies off the internet just over the years for no particular reason. Just out of some kind of a weird obsession.
What's happening, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning into Hyphenate with me, your host, Randy Randall. This is our show for Thursday, December 25th. Merry Christmas out there to all who celebrate. On today's show, we celebrate the life and times of our Lord and Savior, Mr. Kevin Shields. I talked to author Andrew Perer about his new book, Turn My Head into Sound, A History of Kevin Shields and My Bloody Valentine. For everybody out there that knows me and knows my band No Age and my solo guitar work stuff, one could reasonably assume that I'm a fan of the Kevin Shields and My Bloody Valentine ensemble. They were a band that I found, and somewhere after Loveless came out and the band had more or less disbanded. I inherited some tapes and a VHS cassette of the Story of Creation. And so I think I got Isn't Anything and Loveless on tape. I had those. And it was confusing, at first, but I think it was really watching the VHS, The Story of Creation, with the little interviews with Kevin Shields with a big parka on and his hair all in his eyes. And there was something about him sort of talking about the sound of My Bloody Valentine and what he was trying to do and sort of this unfocusing of your ears that really appealed to me in my sort of, experimental, kind of budding, noisy, sort of, post-Sonic Youth fandom of suburban Southern California, where I liked skateboarding, but I also liked noisy things. And so I felt like My Bloody Valentine kind of fit in there somewhere, but it felt like a very personal sort of band. Like not everybody knew about them and they were hard to sort of listen to, and you couldn't just put them on in the car with your friends. So there was sort of something a little antisocial about them, but I really liked it. I found myself almost becoming obsessed with it and just the sounds. Like, how is he doing that with a guitar? I know it's a guitar, bass, and drums, but what are these effects? And I think that sort of led me down a road of effects pedals and things, and earnestly going to Guitar Center, as a 14-year-old and buying a flanger. And well, that's not really it, but just, you got to kick off any journey, it's got to start somewhere. So I was really excited to sit down with Andrew to talk about all of his research and all of his in-depth writing about My Bloody Valentine and Kevin Shields. Yeah, and I want to thank Ned Raggett for turning me on to this book. Ned was nice enough to point this out and said, hey, I think this is something that'd be of your interest. He knew my Kevin Shields obsession. So it was great. Yeah, I pre-ordered it. You can also pre-order the book. You can go to turnmyheadintosound.com. You can go to amazon.com. They got it there. I just got my copy. I pre-ordered it. It came in great shape and just in time. You can also go to Norman Rex on Instagram. NORMANRECS on Instagram. But yeah, it seems like the evil Amazon is a way to do it. But there's lots and lots of great stories and backgrounds and histories, and you'll hear us in a second chatting with Andrew, the author, just of how meticulous and how in depth he went, and it was fun. It was fun to nerd out. I feel like I haven't really wrapped my head around, what the reformed sort of new incarnation of My Bloody Valentine is doing, but I know they're playing shows. They will be hitting the road this year. I think they just did some shows in the UK and maybe more here in America to come. So you might find me at an LA show. Blistering. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, we talk about it in the interview, but I remember, going to see the reunion thing. It just felt so unreal. It didn't seem like something I'd ever get to do, is see this band live. And all of the stuff I read was just how loud they were, and they did not disappoint. And yeah, super exciting. And over the weird run of doing all the No Age festivals and shows and things, Dean and I did play an All Tomorrow's Parties. It was curated by My Bloody Valentine. We were lucky enough to meet Kevin Shields a handful of times, and such a nice guy, but really one of those things I think I'll never not be intimidated by him. I think where it's the kind of thing where I can appreciate being a fan so much that I really just feel like I want, like he wants to be left alone, and I don't want to bother the poor man. But he has really, created something and unleashed upon the world a sound and something that had never been done before. And I think really, revolutionized music in a way that I think the pond, the ripples are still being felt. Obviously, there's more excitement for shoegaze and this, kind of muffled, bendy guitar sounds, now more than ever. So it's really exciting to get a new book. I'll be digging into that while I'm recovering from this cold over this holiday season. So yeah, Turn My Head Into Sound is the book. You can go to turnmyheadintosound.com, go to Amazon, look for it there. You can also go to Norman Rex and order it through them as well. Yeah, super cool. Andrew, thanks for coming on. And everybody, I hope you're having a good holiday vacation, holiday, break. If you're traveling, be safe, stay warm. I know we're expecting rain in LA. We'll see how we do. We'll see how we survive. I'm sure Farley and I will talk mostly about the rain on the plains on Monday's Hyphenate halftime. But until then, Merry Christmas, everybody. Stay safe, stay warm. Hope you got everything you wanted for the holidays, and hope you got all your friends and family everything they wanted. And if you know any My Bloody Valentine fans and they did not get Turn My Head Into Sound, now's a good time to go out and buy it for them. It'll be there in just a couple of days. So Turn My Head Into Sound is the new book, and here is Andrew Perer, the author. Andrew, thanks so much for coming on Hyphenate. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good.
How you doing?
You have a new book about My Bloody Valentine, Turn My Head Into Sound.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the book and how you got into writing it.
There wasn't really a book on them about 2018 or 19 or something. In 2018, I decided to put together. I thought I was going to be like a simple thing, kind of to gather all the information I had, which I had accumulated over many years. And it ended up being growing into a big project. When I tried to put everything together, I realized it was a much bigger and longer story than anyone knew. So, like a big dramatic arc and just a lot of stuff. I was a huge fan, and I kept all these articles over the years for since I was about 16 or 17, I've been collecting stuff about them. It just struck me as, I don't know, for whatever reason. And they just became this big project to me to do. I was going to finish for whatever reason, whether it was going to get published or not. by real press or anything. I just I thought it was a good story. I really think it's a good arc. He's a really interesting guy. I think his prominence will just grow with time. And imports everyone in the industry knows who he is, and you can get quotes from anyone you want about how important he is and how influential he is.
Yeah. Did you go out and interview people for it?
Yeah. I started out with the guy who did the videos, Angus Cameron. I thought those were really interesting. They were done very cheaply, but they kind of reframed My Bloody Valentine, kind of, I think, got them first out in the world around 1990 with Soon. That was their first big hit. That was their first big, they were noticed then by everybody. Brian Eno commented on them. That was like his favorite thing going around, when he was interviewed. He was talking, they asked him, what are you listening to at a MoMA? I was at a MoMA museum in New York. And he said Soon was just his favorite track. And then I talked to some engineers who were important. It was an important thing. I talked to people at Island. So he had a whole big debacle at Island Records, and I talked to the managing director, the guy who ran it after Chris Blackwell stepped down, kind of, who founded Island. Who broke Bob Marley and U2 and all those people. Mark Moreau took over for 10 years, and he's the one who signed Kevin Shields after that for 10 years. He ran Island for 10 years, and then a few other people. But I interviewed the band, and I don't think they were interested. They don't know me, and I don't think they really care. To be honest, I think they have better things to do.
That's interesting.
They did one book, but a small book, but I don't think they were so pleased that it came out.
Was there a 33 1/3 about them? I would imagine.
Yeah, and Mike McGonigal wrote one version of it, and they showed it to Shields, and he based it on a book by this guy Dave Kavanaugh, who did a book on creation, and a lot of the stuff in there just isn't accurate. He didn't interview the band, and he just didn't do enough research, and so I stopped that book, figured that out, and he did another book interviewing the band. And there's a disclaimer at the beginning saying, well, we think that the quotes are basically accurate in here. We don't count anything else as having credibility in our eyes necessarily. Nothing to do with us other than the direct quotes. So that tells you something.
The band in the front of the
I mean, not only about their control, but I don't think what he wrote was so accurate or so good, honestly.
Interesting. I mean,
I don't think they care that much, but
what are some of the misnomers, or what did people get wrong about My Bloody Valentine? And did you
everything?
Do you address that in your book? How do you fix the story?
The very first thing that people really got wrong was that he was using a lot of guitars. That was the very first thing, that he was using a lot of like lots of overdubs. Most of his tracks up until the last album, his songs had one guitar, typically 1 to 3 guitars. There's one main guitar in one time, one main up front guitar, real dry, and then run through a digital processor, and then runs through an amp. He doesn't go directly into the desk ever. But that was the biggest misconception. And then the other thing that happened right around 88, these bands saw him, these other kids saw him, and the whole shoegaze thing took off in about 1990. And these bands were really inspired by him. They saw there was a show, this particular show, there's different shows where they say, the Sex Pistols show at 76 at the Union Trade Hall or something, or, I was there at that show. I was there at the first Suicide show. Was it the LCD System show? I'm Losing My Edge. Do you know that song?
No.
Remember that song? Okay. Anyways, all right. About every important show, I was there.
Oh,
so
sure.
I was there when so and so. So, anyways, there was an important show. They opened for when Creation did a festival. It was kind of coming out. All the Creation bands played in '88, and that inspired the people you can see in the picture, like people from Slow Dive and other bands, and that inspired them to like start their bands. And they didn't do anything My Bloody Valentine did. They used techniques that are old, that are modulation techniques, like echo, reverb, cue, what else? What do the Cocteau Twin guy uses?
Chorus or flanger or
flanging, phasing.
Yeah.
All old stuff. That's all stuff that it hasn't changed in 1970, really. Okay, when the Beatles and Hendrix had done that stuff, it hasn't changed at all. We're just really used to it. I mean, echo, reverb, flanging, phasing. You've heard it so many times. It's not psychedelic. It's not disorienting. It's just, it can be used tastefully, but it's boring in a lot of ways. And probably the worst example is the first Slow Dive album. It's probably the worst thing that came out of that. And they improved a lot in the next album, but there's some really horrible tracks on that. They're using and those things are very top down. You can't interact with them. You play the guitar and then you put them on top. You kind of the guitar goes through and they come on top, and you don't interact with them. Everything he does is emotive and kind of is ground up, and he plays with it, and he integrates it into his sound and into the playing. So it's such a different philosophy, and it's so original, and so to be associated with these bands because they're English and they're around the same age, and was bizarre to him. He really didn't get it. Mm-hmm. He's like, they're not listening,
Where did you first come about My Bloody Valentine? How did you first hear them, and what was your first sort of interaction?
I heard them when I was 16. I grew up in Florida, and we got Enemy and Melody Maker and stuff like that. And I had a friend who was a year or two older, and she played some stuff for me. So that was when I first heard them. I was pretty blown away by You Made Me Realize EP, like a lot of people. I think that was the first thing that people really, that EP really, technically it's untitled, but that was just such a strange combination of a noise, melody, and then the bass and rhythm presence was so different from the other bands. The bass is just, if you listen to the Jesus and Mary Jane albums or anything else, it's just missing from these bands. They're not dynamic, and he grew up in America his first 10 years, and there's something about that in him, that he has this bass. He's a really good bass player. All the bass playing on his records is him. And, he's not just thinking about the voice and the guitar. He's thinking about everything and how the whole track makes you feel. The whole hits your body and your ears and everything. So much more bass presence and dance presence and rhythmic presence on that record. And it was just a lot of allure. It was modern. It was new sounding. It was sexy. It was,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I thought.
I mean, the drums and the rhythm, especially on a record like Loveless, I think there's been a lot, sort of documented with that and sort of how he went into it. Like, what in your research, can you talk a little bit about that, about the tracking of the drums and then the sampling and the programming of the drums?
Yeah, so the drums on the first album, on the first two, okay, so the EPs, so Belinda Butcher joined in '87, and they did a single with her first called Strawberry Wine, then an EP called Ecstasy. And then the next year, in 1988, they did You Made Me Realize EP, then Feed Me With Your Kiss EP, in the same sessions with Isn't Anything. All those are all live drums for the most part, except for one or two songs maybe. And they're just really dynamic and just really great. And very Keith Moon, very atavistic, very dynamic. And then for the next album, they went for something totally different. And I think because Calm got sick for a few months in '89, wasn't functioning. So they ended up learning to use a sampler really well. And most of the drums, he did just all the drums at first, just separately. Just finished the drums. Just did them all first. And then he, he had like drum tracks programmed for like 23 songs or something. That was the first thing he did. And then the songs would be, then they would, he was just adding stuff to various songs as we went along. And it was taking, they decided to, in '89, they were completely decided to experiment a lot more and figure out how they were going to progress. They did 2 EPs in '89 that were never released. Well, released some as bonus tracks years later, but they were unhappy, and they wanted to just, that if we're going to advance, we got to figure more stuff out and, play with stuff more, just like the Beatles did or something, in '65 and '66. And so '89, to Creation's horror, they didn't release anything. And they didn't hear anything either. And McGee finally heard Soon and was blown away. It was like, this is the most exciting thing I've heard. This is the Stooges meets the Happy Mondays or something. It was just, and it was a really futuristic track. And so they decided to work on an EP and put Loveless aside. And so with Alan Moulder, who didn't contribute artistically, but in any way, but was his, got to help him get a lot done and gave him credibility with Creation. He finished the Glider EP. And that was probably a high point for them. That early '90. They were just, everyone really liked that. It crossed over. It was, on the dance floors, and it's a really strange track because it's not really, the bass and drums aren't that important. The bass and drums aren't what carry the rhythm. There's so many other things carrying the rhythm, the guitars and all kinds of other things. There's phasings. There's all kinds of like Steve Reich type of phasing. And so after that, so the drums are done for the track. He does Glider. Then in like 3 or 4 days, he lays down all the bass lines from memory. No notes. He just puts them all down real quickly. All the bass lines are done. And then some of the tracks they did a short tour for Glider, and they actually played 2 songs from Loveless on that. I didn't even realize so recently. I Only Said and maybe Coming Alone or something. So tracks are being done in this random way over these 2 years they worked on the album, and they decided to go. They kept things. So this whole time, Creation had no money, but not because of My Bloody Valentine, because they switched distributors, and as they that's another misnomer that they bankrupted Creation, or
I was gonna say I've always heard that being said. I think Alan sort of propagated that sort of idea.
Yeah. I mean, Alan,
That My Bloody Valentine tanked the label and Oasis saved the label.
He's more. I mean, he makes a big point of saying, his quote is like, they had nothing to do with, they might have like, I can't remember what the quote is, but they didn't bankrupt the label. They could have, killed me, but I might have died from the stress they put me under. But they didn't cause the fundamental economic problems. And they were in the red before Loveless was even started, because they switched distributors. So he says a bunch of times, they did not bankrupt this. The label never went bankrupt. And it was always him getting offers. They were never, as long as they were willing to give up some control, there was no danger of going bankrupt. They had all these offers. So they finally sold half the label to Sony in 92 after Loveless and the other stuff. After Loveless, Screamadelica and Bandwagon-esque by Teenage Fan Club come out. And he wasn't happy with it. He thought this could have sold much better if they had a good distribution network. Which they just didn't have a small label. They're really they were a tiny label when My Bloody Valentine came on. I mean, and still when Screamadelica came out and Teenage Fan Club, I mean, tiny. And I don't know if people realize just how tiny they were. They were about 1.7 million pounds in debt. In like by the end of like 1991 or something. I mean, they were robbing Peter to pay Paul. And if they had a really massive hit in the wrong place, the wrong time, they would have just gone bankrupt, like the theme in The Producers. Right. If they had a massive hit at the wrong time, they would have just been screwed. They would have had to pay Ride. Ride was doing much better than they ever expected, and they would ride a bunch of money. They owed a lot of money. And the day Kevin Shields finished mastering Loveless, they were 1.7 million pounds in debt. He remembered that because that was the day they finished mastering the record. And so they put stress on the label because they were costing them like, 6,000 pounds every week or whatever. It went on. Yeah. But I mean, like other bands spent more, but just in a shorter amount of time. Primal Scream spent 400,000 on Give Up But Don't Give Out. It recorded it twice. It was a much shorter period of time. But the Loveless thing went on and on and on, and they were, at different points, people, the other partner, main partner in Creation wanted to just cut them off, and so Loveless might not have existed. But I think McGee is ultimately the one who saw it through, that had faith in Shields. I mean, he still says to this day he thinks Shields is a genius and that's the best album they ever put out, and the best style person he ever worked with, and he still says that 20 years later. So after they did Glider, they just Creation gave them almost no money still because they were so broke. They didn't have money to put money down on a flat of any sort, even to even they would get like, I don't know, 70 pounds a month or something, a week or something. And Colm had a breakdown in late 89 because he couldn't have a place to live. They were all kind of homeless. The studios were kind of where they lived, especially the guys. And so that whole period it's just everything was changing every week and every month, and how much they got done. And I think 1990 was the slowest time. Maybe they spent 3 or 4 months on sampling, playing the sampler for To Hear Knows When. That took a huge amount of time. That's a really conceptual track, and I read a lot about that song. And that Tremolo EP is probably their best thing ever, even better than Loveless.
What sort of sampler were they using? Do you know, in terms of the gear, or what's?
They had a really primitive sampler up soon, and then they got their first sampler, decent sampler, Akai sampler, AKI, the first proper sampler in 1990. And so they're doing all kinds of feedback sampling and AKI.
Yeah, but was it an MPC sampler? I know that Kai made the MPCs were sort of the big gray ones with the big gray pads.
Yeah, let me look it up while we talk.
I'm just because I think they've been an inspiration, for loops and samples in so many ways. I think like we talk about not necessarily layering guitars or like mountains of guitar work, but the sound itself feels so ethereal or disconnected, but also very rhythmic. And I think that's what the sampling sort of technique and practice might have something to do with that, or I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, his big inspiration in sampling was Public Enemy. He was really into those the first three Public Enemy albums are a huge influence on him. And they gave away a track, a free 7-inch single, and one of the songs was Security of the First World, which is just a loop. Madonna would use it for Justify My Love a couple of years later. And Shields just laid guitar over it, and he did something much more interesting with it than she did. But he was really inspired by the Bomb Squad and Hank Shockley, his brother. And I think the way they would use a lot of samples, and they wouldn't quite line up, the tones would be off a little bit, but the bass was loud enough that it wouldn't matter. And so he got a lot of inspiration. I talk about that quite a bit in the book. And
I always think about that. I was thinking about that drum roll, with like the da 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 da. It's a very kind of like staccato, sort of like minimal dynamic drum roll. That's in oh God, I'm trying
the early stuff like Feed Me With Your Kiss or something, or
maybe something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that early stuff was calm, and then he only ended up playing on 2 songs on he got better after 2 or 3 months, but Shields, they were just going for a different sound. So he
sorry, I threw you down a rabbit hole looking for the sampler.
Yeah, okay. Let me take 10 seconds to see if I can find it. I'll do it later. Yeah. I'll do it after. And it's some primitive AKI sampler, and so they just slowed down during the Gulf War in 1990. Creation had no money to give them. They didn't have work. He would bitch they didn't have working guitars, and everything was a struggle. And not only that, but Shields wouldn't record if he didn't feel he wasn't in a good place mentally. And he wasn't in a good place in a lot of ways, both because his relationship with Belinda was difficult, and they didn't have a place to live, and there's a lot of tension with Creation at that point that they kept recording, and so they just came to such a slowdown. Then Tremolo came out early 1991, and if you listen to Glider and Tremolo, they have a very blunted sound. If you try to listen to Hear Knows One on the video, it's really hard to hear everything. It's really blunted sounding, for lack of a better word, to make things out. And when they ran off the tapes to send out as promotional things to all the different, the radio stations and all that for Tremolo, he checked each one to check and see if they were okay. And he checked literally checked every tape. And because they would get these calls as the tape is warped. All these people. And Alan McGee was like, called Shield and said, "Oh, I need another tape. My tape is warped." And he's like, "No, that's just the way it sounds." And he's like, "No, Kevin, it's there's something wrong with my tape." He's like, I can't handle this," and he hung up on him. And so those Soon and Tierna's One were remixed for the brighter sound of Loveless. Supposedly Shield said he was sleeping more, and so the sound changed, and it's a brighter sound on Loveless, and there's more information in the tracks. And the original tremolo here on record is and Tierna's One sounds quite different than the version on the record. And then when he did the remasters 2018 of the vinyl, that's just great sounding. But so the tremolo in 1991, which was the label was not happy with, even though it was charted really well. It did. It was like top 30, I think. I was on these different shows in the mainstream. It got played on one of these TV shows, and they played not only the track but the interstitial track after it. They didn't have any kind of edit of it. No one made an edit of it for promotional purposes or anything. So you play the track, and there's a really even more disorienting interstitial track after that. So that was played on UK TV, and that must have confused the hell out of everyone. And during this, they're getting these great videos from Angus Cameron, who was just using this primitive technology to make. He made 4 videos for them: Soon, Tierna's One, Swallow, and then the last one was paid by Warner Brothers with more money for Only Shallow. But they cost nothing. And they're really creative, and they're just a nice compliment to the My Bloody Valentine things, because those records were done, repurposing equipment for how it was not intended to be used. And
is that where the cover image of Loveless comes from?
Yeah, it's an image from Swallow, and I took that, and then Kevin tinted it in color red, and it's directly from Swallow. So just really inexpensive equipment, and there was a collection of the British Film Institute put a collection of videos from I think 64 to 2014 of either 200 or 400 best or most important videos or consequential videos, and they put Tierna's One on there, which is a really nice video. It has a swirling effect of there's a whole bunch of shots of Belinda rotating, and they colored them all different colors. So it has they hand painted each different copy of her. And have you seen the video? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Tierna's One?
Yeah.
So it's like kaleidoscope effect.
Together, yeah.
Yeah, and so she's she's a dancer, and she's pirouetting basically, and at the very end of the video you kind of see her losing it because she's getting so dizzy. I don't know how many takes they did or how long she did each pirouette for or whatever, but and also the dancing in the Soon video was just improvised in the moment, and that really made for a nice video. And there's also dancing of her in Swallow, which is hard to see. So,
One
but
of
it
the,
looks really
the
organic.
first things I had was the Story of Creation VHS, where it had like interviews.
Yeah.
And then they played they played a few of the videos there. And I remember I had the tape of Isn't Anything and Loveless, but it didn't really, again, it's like your ears are kind of reject it upon first listen, as at least for me as a young person. And then, but watching the video and hearing, Kevin Shields with the big park over his head, kind of, talking about the music and the fluff on the needle and this kind of stuff, and him, sort of having, some commentary around, his inspiration for the music, or at least talking about it, sort of gave me a key to sort of unlock it in a way to appreciate it in a more fuller way.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. Those videos were really important for people to follow the music, because they give you visual cues as to what's happening, and there's specific things in there Shields and Cameron put in there. Shields said, I want this, and, Shields said, I want a way to represent this change in the music, or, this guitar part and this thing. And actually, Alan McGee, he didn't understand Dear Knows When. And then he's like, he saw the video, and he's like, oh, I get it now. I understand it, because it's very key how it's edited. And there's a moment when there's actually like there's Dear Knows When is like kind of two rhythms going. He was doing an experiment with rhythm, and it was part of the reason it took so long. And there's a part in the song where her image doubles and splits off into two, and that's when the two rhythms break off the most from each other. And there's like a simple pulse, and there's another one that's kind of more of a kind of a high pitched sound that speeds up at that moment when her image becomes 1 to 2. There's just all these visual cues in those videos that help people follow the music. Mm-hmm. So they were really important, I think, for a lot of people. And
it's sort of this idea of like unfocusing in some ways, where like, if you watch it, but you kind of
exactly.
like the magic eye sort of poster thing to be sort of cheesy, like those things you see in the mall.
Exactly.
Like watching the video,
I mean,
you have to do with your ears, sort of unfocusing your ears to reject the top layer, what you're normally listened. You're so attuned, I think, by pop radio or pop music to just hear only the top of a sound or of a song, and then versus rejecting that and listening to something more deeper, or sort of the overtones or undertones of what a composition.
Yeah, I mean, he says in the creation video, he says, we don't just listen to the guitar. Most music is made to come out and attack you. You just hear you hear the vocal out front, and the guitar, and the guitar and the main vocals out in front to like hit you. Mm-hmm. And he's like, we don't do that. We listen to everything, and we're taking the whole track. And so he's not going to make it simple, or he doesn't, not to make it difficult, but just because he does something different. He wants more of a painting, more of a whole big image. And that's exactly a good analogy, is that you have to listen a different way, kind of, how they dilate your eyes when you're, when you go to the eye doctor. You kind of have to dilate your ears a little bit and pull back and take in the larger image, and then you'll get it. And you'll hear what's going on. You have to hear the whole bigger thing. There's a melody there that you can focus in on if you want to. But the more you can pull out and take in the whole track, you'll understand what he's doing. And, tremolo doesn't want anything. And then Love is a bit more focused. But tremolo was like the most blunted sounding thing ever. Mm-hmm. And that's really hard to take in. Those videos were key for that. And Soon, for that matter, also. So those videos just helped exactly everything you said. And the way he describes it, I think what he said in the videos, and and the in between the songs, and then getting the visual images to help you understand where the changes are and what to look at, and all that kind of stuff. And those were really a collaboration. But Angus Cameron was really happy with those things, and they came out. They're just they're really an asset to the band, and a proper video analog to the songs.
Yeah.
Even though you can't hear them that well on a computer or something. They are great visual cues, visual analogs.
Yeah.
So
I think there was something fun. I mean, I came to them, around the early 90s, probably by 93, but after Loveless, and then they had broken up, and there was this sort of like, at least for me in Southern California, there was a sort of sense of like, discovering something, and I was like, oh, but I missed it. I just missed it. It's not here. It's not like, it was something that was very ephemeral, but it made this kind of mysterious sort of like very small club of fans of My Bloody Valentine, or if you were somebody else that liked them or that had an awareness of them, it felt as though there culturally you were onto something. There was record store nerds or noise nerds, there was such a personal process of listening to the music too that just felt like, oh, if you found other people out there like you were like, ooh, okay, we are in a weird small club, and then that would go on and change. And I think one of the chapters you shared in the book was about Brian Retzel coming in, and then the Sofia Coppola, Lost in Translation stuff. I think that really sort of brought it to the mainstream in a way where like so many things that were like darlings of the underground, like, oh no, not everybody loves them. Like, this isn't, how is this possible? This isn't allowed. Like, talk to me a little bit about that. I know it seemed like you did a lot of, at least just from the chapter you shared, I read that.
Loveless sold okay, but it wasn't, the British press wants to move on to the next thing, and it came out the same week as within a week of Nirvana's second album. What's it called? In Utero. No, the big one.
Nevermind.
Nevermind. Yeah, it came out the same week as that. Loveless did.
Yeah.
And they were just so hyped up to that point, and they had such expectations. And so even though it got good reviews, it could never live up to the expectations people had. And it was kind of a consolidation of the two EPs before it, which is what Isn't Anything was before. Also, their first album was a consolidation of the two EPs before. And so it took years for people to talk about it. And Velvet Underground's a good analogy, that, only so many people heard it, but so they all started bands or whatever.
Right.
And this was like everyone who heard it, talked about it. And by 2008, it took the Velvet Underground about 23 years. They broke up in 70, and then they had pressure on them to reform, and I don't know, what is it?
The 90s for the
93 or something to reform. It took like 23 years for people to get it enough that they toured Europe, Velvet Underground. So My Bloody Valentine, Loveless.
The Czech Revolution, I think, also had an influence on them, they were taken up as a...
it didn't hurt. It certainly didn't hurt. Just a time for the music to make its way. And Loveless took its time to, Shields didn't really know if he connected with anyone. And slowly, by the end of by the end of the turn of the century, it was connecting a lot more. And then by 2006 or so, 2007, there was demand for them to reform, to play shows. And they got an offer. The first offer came from the big music festival out here. Offered them $1 million to come together and to play. What's that?
Coachella,
yeah. Offered them in 2007. They offered them $1 million to play in 2008, but they weren't ready. But Kevin Shields began the process, and the guy who ran All Tomorrow's Party has been waiting for Barry Hogan wanted to be a part of it, so he loaned them about $600,000, for new equipment. Shields, the one thing Shields really regretted was that he'd never gotten to do the songs live properly. And the 91-92 tour is probably the worst in terms of what they pulled off. They spent Creation dropped them in early 1992. So they had very little support. They used $20,000 in publishing money to buy equipment. They didn't even have Vox amps, which is Vox and Marshall amps are the main amps on Loveless. So that was the one thing he really was upset about, and that bothered him. So in 2008, they were finally able to present the songs much closer to what they wanted to, and each year they just developed it more and more. And then and this last year was 2025. These first 6 shows in the UK and Ireland sound amazing from what I can hear of the bootlegs and the other things. They just sound so dialed in that they just but 2008 is when they really started to pull off good shows, and there was just demand, and people were catching on. New generation. It was not a nostalgia act. It was young people, and the kids. Most of the people were under 35, and to this day, since then, it's been new generations catching on to them, like the Beatles or Rolling Stones or Joy Division or the Smiths or whatever. They're a band like that for the ages, and that's why their venues just keep getting bigger. They're playing They played arenas now in this last tour. I don't know if it was in the States, but they were able to do it there in London and Dublin and stuff.
Yeah, I would imagine they could play a forum-sized sort of place here in Los Angeles.
I don't know about that, but it sounds.
Did you see them at the Santa Monica Civic on that 2008 tour?
I think that's what I saw them. Yeah, the sound wasn't so great. It wasn't a great venue.
I was up front, and I really only heard Kevin's amps, which is really all I wanted to hear at that point. I was excited for those 2 nights.
Yeah,
I think the first night I was right up front, and then the second night I kind of tried to get closer to the soundboard. But I think I enjoyed him up front.
The soundboard, you want to go by the soundboard guy is where you want to be theoretically, and but every venue is different and every show is different, and sometimes I couldn't make out the song. I just had no idea, and I know the songs really well, and I'm like, I have no idea what the hell they're playing, so 2008 they toured 2008, 2009, I think 2013 maybe. And then 2018, and now 2025. And I'm thinking this is their last tour. And 2018 coincided with, 2013 coincided with the MBV album, which really was done almost. I realized when writing the book was really done in 96, 97. He had all the melodies. The melodies are all from then. Even if they didn't record that much of it, they maybe only recorded 30% of it. But all the songs were formed by then, or formed to some degree, or the parts, or he had all the melodies in his head by then, and so that album was kind of represented. The MBV album was kind of represented the 10-year period from like 88 to 97, like that 10-year period. So if you think about it, I'm thinking he's going to release at least 2 more albums he's got to release, and hopefully do this last world tour. They'll fill in. They had the one date in Spain toward the end of 96, and there's a huge gap in there. I think your rumors are negotiating to play these other places around the world. I don't know. I have no idea if that's true, but I mean,
well, I remember there was definitely something about, they would only play live if they were able to play at a decibel level that they wanted to, which a lot of the
they
promoters and people just would not allow. It would almost seemed to be illegal to play at these decibel levels, and so there was sort of some of the difficulty around some of those. Not reunion, but the later 2000s tour.
I mean, they found venues that they accommodated them, but they had more than anything is like Shales had a lot of requirements, and even with Barry Hogan, as excited as he was to have them do, they did 2 All Tomorrow's parties. There was one in America and one in 2009. And as excited as he was and how great things they were, he just said Shields, when it came to the music, would not compromise in any way, and he has to. He's just so serious, and they have to be up to spec and has to meet his cert, he puts in the contract, how the sound has to be, and it has to meet these. I don't know how those work exactly, but it has to be able to, accommodate these things, or he won't play there. Mm-hmm. So they found places. I think he did his thing. He volume is a personal experience, and it's a way of hearing music. And I think he wanted to take that as far as he could in 2008, 2009, and I think he's backed off that a little bit now. But he definitely wanted to do some things, and they're not doing the super long version of Hear Knows of You Made Me Realize anymore. It doesn't sound like 20-minute versions, and that was really interesting. It says a lot about him, about what he thinks live music should be, and a transcendent thing, and it's not like seeing them play their albums. It's a totally different experience if you've never been to a concert. It's he's trying for something completely different in a way.
Yeah, it feels like a molecular rearrangement, like the vibrations of the music literally live inside of you, and your whole body's vibrating in a way that's
and he wants it. It's very auditory East-West thing, that it's not just about your ears; it's about your body, mm-hmm. and how it feels in your body, and all that kind of stuff. So, and that's always been about Eastern Western ideas and combining all these different things. So, in the period when Island cut him off in 97. So they gave him a big contract in 92, at the end of 92. Mark Moreau did, and then they didn't end up releasing anything except for 2 covers. And Shields wasn't confident about what he was putting together. He tried a drum and bass project first. There's a couple tracks on the end of MBV that are from that are versions of that. The very last song, Wonder 2, on MBV is the most direct song that has some relation to the original drum and bass stuff. And I talk about it, and there's no video for it, but I break it down and make it a lot easier to understand, I think, what's going on in that song. The very last song on MBV. Mm-hmm. So I discussed that at length. My musician friend explained it to me. That's what happened. He's like, okay, here's where you can hear the chord progression here, and here's where the loops are, and he broke it down, and I'm like, oh, I can follow it now. But most of that was abandoned pretty much. They were doing it all wrong, the drum and bass stuff. They tackled it on their own, as they usually do, and they did it completely wrong. Instead of stretching like loops or like you're supposed to do in drum and bass, and a few key samples that people use, he was actually programming each beat, which is diametrically wrong. So it's not how drum and bass music was done, and he's doing it completely wrong. So someone came in and taught him in like 96 or something. A couple people came in, and then they just dropped it all, and he started again doing very short riffs and not complete songs anymore. Mostly riffs and rhythmic ideas and little pieces. And then he took, I don't know, about 20 of those pieces and made 8 songs out of that for the MBV album. And I think one song was recorded new in 2012. So that was pretty much, all stuff from 1997. So we haven't heard any new music from them, really, except for 2 new songs they played live in their 2018 tour in a long time. And really since 1997.
It'll be interesting.
So I think he's got a lot. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what it sounds like. MBV was so different sounding, and yet so interesting. The first, I didn't really listen to it for whatever reason that much when it first came out. I don't know why, but I just didn't make the effort. And
well, it's hard to reconcile new stuff, from a band that you love so much of the,
and
I think you hear it at different times too, especially if you discover it as a teenager. It's just hard to be like, well, this doesn't sound. I don't feel like a teenager listening to this, and it's not the music's fault. It's more the time's fault. It's 20 years later now. You're like, okay, well, I feel old listening to this. That was my experience. The music wasn't bad, but I wasn't young and hungry or as curious or open-minded as I was then.
Exactly right. I wasn't.
It's more the listener's fault.
I wasn't as interested in music as I used to be.
Yeah,
but
or as willing to follow
new bands and stuff.
Let's talk a little bit about the book. Where can people get the book? When will it be out? How do you want people to find you?
Well, you can buy the digital version anytime, and it came out in the UK in October, actually.
But is a physical pressing? Is a
physical pressing, and then it's being shipped over by sea, and so it'll be here December 16th. Or no, what month are we in right now?
December.
Are we in December? Okay, December 16th. It'll be available. So you can put in a pre-order now. So in a couple of days it'll be available, and or a week or two. And I've just gotten all positive reviews, all positive feedback. There's the Wire's going to be reviewing it, but all the other reviews, there's some on the Amazon site from all the podcasts and other magazines and other quotes from people about the book. And then on my site, you can see some quotes from people who actually read the book, journalists and stuff, and they're all good. They're all, they were really pleased with it, and they should be, because it took a long time. And most people who write these books are journalists, professional writers. So I had to both figure out the publishing industry and find an editor. And this is before I ever did a proposal to submit it to publishing companies, just to make it into something readable and stuff. And during this time, it gave me time to keep going over the articles and keep rereading them and keep the amount of research done. Because it took so long, because it took about 7 years, it's really complete, and then it was edited so well. I mean, if I had been left to my own devices, it would have been 400,000 words, and it's about 100,000 words. It's a very quick read, but there's so much detail. I had 2 really amazing editors. I mean, each with like 20 years experience, and I had my own personal editor I had to hire to get it. I worked with for a couple of years, and then the editor at Jawbone did the final edit, and he did a really nice job and arranged it in a certain way. My editor left it open and left more in so that Jawbone could do it in their style or how they wanted to do it. And it's arranged really nicely. There's 16 chapters, and then there's 6 chapters that are interludes. they're kind of deeper dives that you can skip if you're not interested. And I don't think it could be more complete. I really don't. I mean, I had so much time to go over so much stuff, and I had everything ever written on him in every language and every video and every interview on video. I gotten copies off the internet just over the years for no particular reason, just out of kind of a weird obsession. So there's everything in there, every quote that you could ever want to hear that isn't of importance, or every topic we cover. And that's due because there was so much time to keep going over and over and over it. So, it's like it was like 20 years to write a book on Stalin or something. I took 7 years to rewrite a book on Kevin Shields, like 7 times. So, 4 or 5 times to rearrange it and redo it and figure everything out and get, realize I had some gaps here and I had to get a couple more interviews. And I also got key interviews with 2 engineers. There's a key engineer who, when they recorded Isn't Anything and their second EP, If You Meet With Your Kiss, Dave Anderson, who was like really instrumental in there was a chance thing that happened, and right when they were about to leave, Shields said, I want you to erase all the dry guitar parts. Reverse reverb is the main thing he uses. There's certain iterations of it.
Mm-hmm.
The kind he uses kind of a percussive way. And there's the original, track you play. That's the
dry track.
Dry track, exactly. And then the other track that's created afterward from that. And he told him erase. He told him, so that no one could screw with it after, he told him erase the original tracks. And Anderson kind of like, he didn't know what creation would say. He wasn't sure of their relationship, but he did it anyways. And it's kind of crossing a Rubicon for Shields, I think. He was saying this is the way it's going to be. And I think Creation were a little surprised at what it sounded like, because no one had done guitar like that before. And but he was very sure of what he wanted.
A new genre was born.
Yeah, and the first EP you made me realize doesn't really have glide guitar or his signature guitar on any songs really. Slow is sort of touches upon it, but he didn't think much of it. It was just a one-off thing kind of in his head. And then when he got to full studios with Dave Anderson is where he, by accident, he heard the Dave Anderson was playing the wet effect through the speakers by itself, and he came running in. And he said, "What's that sound?" And he's like, "Oh, that's just the reverse reverb. That's the wet sound. It's not what's going to sound like when we put the dry sound back in." He's like, "No, that's my sound. That's it. Like that's my sound."
The Elisa's MIDI board too.
Yeah, and that was like a seminal moment for him. So it wasn't you made me realize EP wasn't really things. A lot of things came together there, but that was another seminal moment for him when he realized, they did so many tracks. They did like about 19 tracks in about 6 weeks that make up Isn't Anything, If You Meet With Your Kiss, to a 7-inch they gave away, and there are 2 other tracks left over that were released later with the EPs collection. And so it was done in like 5 weeks maybe or something, really quickly. They sound amazing. And then he decided, when they went back to record in '89, they said they did 2 EPs, and they just said, we can't record this way anymore. We can't record quickly. We have to take our time and rethink things. And that's when they changed again, and the dry vocals left, and the vocals are much more amorphous, and you can't hear the words as well, and he would emphasize certain sounds. So there's really specific demarcation points. And I just was thinking that the very first, I mentioned about the very first demarcation point of everything is the song Strawberry Wine, which is Belinda did. And that if you hear on the 12-inch in 87, it sounds amazing. It's really maybe the first real MBV track, even though people associate You Made Me Realize with them. But I think that is, and just for the record, so everyone knows, there was a collection put out of Ecstasy and Wine, you've probably seen, and that was put out without his permission. They combined the Ecstasy EP and the Strawberry Wine single, and he didn't master that. It was done completely behind his back. So, because Lazy was trying to cash in. So that's not the way you want to hear them, ideally. They're expensive to get, the Ecstasy EP and the Strawberry Wine EP, but Strawberry Wine single, but they sound so different.
It's worth it.
And vinyl, it's worth it. Yeah, Strawberry Wine, it's all of side one on a 12-inch. So there's so much information. It's beautiful sounding. It's really otherworldly. So the live show looks amazing now. The visuals, the songs sound so dialed in from what I can hear and from what I've been told. The light show looks amazing.
Oh, I can't wait to see if they get dates announced.
I have to think they have. I have to think that they're going to do it. This will be a final tour. They're in their 60s. They're all between 60 and 64. So,
oh, man. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I think I just got lucky and stumbled upon the story, and so it's quite a journey, I think, with him. It's a lot more than I realized when I took on the project. So I just got lucky, and I think it's a really interesting story. And part of it is that he never compromised. Why he didn't put anything out for 21 years, and these people came to his rescue, and it has a really great arc to it, the whole story. I think it's a worthwhile read. You can get it from the library. I don't care. But it's a good story. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Of course, yeah. Everyone should go out and buy the book. There'll be a link in the show notes below, so anybody who is curious about it.
Yeah, and there's going to be a bunch of stuff on my website. Hear knows when.
Turn my head
into sound.com. A little bit. Some stuff's up now. Some stuff I'm redoing.
Great.
And that goes with the book.
Great. Well, yeah, there'll be a link in the show notes for everybody that wants to do that. They can Google it. Andrew, well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Cool. Man. Yes, there he is, Andrew Perer. Thank you so much for writing this incredible book about My Bloody Valentine. Turn My Head into Sound, a history of Kevin Shields and My Bloody Valentine. Available everywhere good books are sold. You can also go to turnmyheadintosound.com to follow up on all things Turn My Head into Sound. And keep an eye out for My Bloody Valentine touring maybe this year of 2026. More shows, maybe new music. Who knows? The mysterious Mr. Kevin Shields always keeping us on our toes. And everybody, have a happy holiday. I hope you're doing good. And check on your friends. Give the hugs to the friends. You never know who's going through what this season. So, check in with your people. All right. Merry Christmas, everybody. Bye.
Yeah, I mean, his big inspiration in sampling was Public Enemy. He was really into those the first three Public Enemy albums are a huge influence on him.